Oh, is that guy coming over here? You better believe that guy's coming over here. Whatever, it's my land. You wouldn't buy a house without an inspection. And in this video, I'm gonna show you the 7-step due diligence framework that we do on every single land deal now, so you can avoid the $60,000 mistake that I made in buying that deal in Tennessee. So this stake right here is our property line on this property. You can go all the way down, you can see the property line down there. And then we own all of this, right? You see this well back here, this is our well. So this line is the difference between buying a property that's profitable and buying one that causes you to lose your shirt. Before we get into the 7-step framework we're gonna talk about here, we're gonna talk about all the things that could make or break your land deal. I wanna talk about a deal that I did years ago in Tennessee, Williamson County, Tennessee. Williamson County, Tennessee is the #1 highest income per capita county in the entire state of Tennessee. It's right south of Nashville. We bought this parcel, we thought it was an absolute home run. It was a 5-acre parcel, kind of an infill lot, really beautiful parcel. We perked it, and what happened was we heard that it didn't perk, right? And for me, when I heard, oh, it didn't perk, that means it didn't perk for a conventional septic system. It would perk for an engineered septic system. And the difference in price between conventional and engineered, depending on the area, could be between $20,000 to $30,000. But we were gonna list this thing for $400,000, $500,000. So I said, look, we just add it as a credit. It's not gonna be a big deal. I didn't look into the paperwork, right? So we got this thing under contract. We listed it for I think $450,000. Got no bites. We got people that went out there, they weren't interested. Dropped it, $350,000, $300,000. Got an offer, fell out of contract because we realized the property actually didn't perk. And when we say it didn't perk, it meant that we literally couldn't put a septic tank on the property. Nothing. It was pure rock underneath the soil. So what we had to do eventually is sit on the market for another 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. What we did is we literally offered the best deal in the world, owner financing, 10, 20% down, 4% interest, lower than what a bank would give the person. And I ended up having to sell the note that I originated and extended to these buyers on the secondary market on a platform called PaperStack. Really great platform to buy and sell notes on. And I took a haircut. I lost about $60,000 on that deal, but I learned a valuable due diligence lesson. I feel like I'm collecting all these notches in my belt for all these due diligence lessons, but I realized, hey, if I can make a mistake in perking a lot, there's a ton of other different things. And so I came up with a list of 7 things that you need to do on every single land deal to ensure that you're conducting the right due diligence. So the #1 thing that you want to be concerned about and check is title and legal issues, right? So most of the time, if you get a property under contract, you send it over to a title company, they can make sure that they handle all your title and legal issues. So you just get a reputable title company and you get a title report to make sure that #1, the seller can legally sell the property to you. I can't tell you how many times I get deals submitted to me because we fund deals in literally every state. And I get deals submitted to me. Last year we were gonna buy a deal, buy for like $450, sell for like $950. It was an amazing deal. Ended up the seller was getting scammed. He got his identity stolen. If you don't get title insurance, if you don't find the right title company to work with, which is really, really important. I mean, I can't stress this enough that we've worked with title companies that make you want to rip your hair out and others that it's like a 5-star, 5-class experience. Having the right title company will help you figure out, am I getting scammed or not? Really important. #2 is legal access, okay? So if we look at this property here, right? So you come down here, and you look down there, you see that this is all my land, right? But that property down there, there's like a little bit of a road that comes down into here. But not every property, depending on the title report, has the actual legal access, right? We don't buy parcels that we can't access. A lot of parcels that have been passed down through generations and generations have what we call verbal easements, which is the neighbor, the brother, the sister, the uncle, whomever, they have access to the parcel. They say, hey, you can just use this private road. For example, in this parcel right here, it looks like we had legal access on it. And the reality is, it was on a private road that came around our property. It looked like we could subdivide this property, but when we did a full title search, we didn't have direct legal access to the property. And so we had to call the person who owned it, who had a judgment against them for more than the value of our parcel that we would have to pay off in order to get legal access, because this person was in prison. The person that we were buying the property from wasn't in prison, but the person who had easement access had prison. But this guy says, hey, I've been driving down this road for 40 years. It doesn't matter. If we buy the parcel, we don't have legal access. If we sell it to someone and they're financing with a bank, there's no way they can get financing. So make sure every time you have title, full title insurance, and you have legal access. If you're getting benefit from these videos, consider leaving a comment down below, letting us know exactly what you're looking to see. We'd be happy to create content specifically for you, and leave a like to let the algorithm know that you're getting value from the content. Deal killer number 3 is utilities, right? So we figured out we have legal title, we have physical access, we can actually get to the parcel, which is super important. And there's a ton of different software now, like Land Portal, Land Insights, that you can use to figure out, hey, is there actually access? But most importantly, just get on a phone call with the county and they'll let you know if you actually have access. That'll be seen in the deed. So if you can read the deed electronically, it'll be easy to figure out, hey, is there actually physical or legal access? And your title company can pull that deed when you're doing the title search. The next thing, deal killer number 3, like I said, is utilities, right? So we need to know, can we get water to this parcel? And do we have a sewer system? Now right here is a sanitary sewer system. A lot of times the parcels that we buy are incredibly rural, and so they don't even have a sewer system here. So we would just be able to drive the sewer line directly into the parcel. Not that big of a deal to get access. Sometimes there's tapping fees for water and sewer, but a lot of times they're nominal, a couple $1,000. But if you're very rural, you have to do what is called a percolation test, which essentially is a soil scientist or someone from the Department of the Health will go out to your parcel and bore some holes into the ground and put water into the holes to see how quickly water runs through the soil, to see what is the suitability of the soil for a septic tank, right? Because most of the time we're purchasing properties with actually septic tanks on them. Now, the last utilities that you need to be aware of is electric. So if you look all the way up there, you see that electric pole at the street, obviously way, way up there. We're kind of back off the street, and this parcel is, like I said, 40 acres, and we'll walk kind of more into the parcel, but you need to have electricity access, right? If you're gonna live on a parcel, you need electricity access. So if you're super, super rural, like a lot of places in Alabama, I find don't have electricity for some reason, or Colorado, like super, super remote locations of the United States don't have electricity, so you're literally gonna have to bring in power poles. That gets insanely expensive. In fact, we just did a subdivision in kind of the northern parts of Idaho. It was like a buy for $550, sell for $1.2 million, and we had to work with the local power company, Avista Power. I think I spent like $50,000 on bringing in literal power poles, because they had to run the poles and run the electric lines to the front of these parcels and back off the parcels, back off the main road into where these parcels, the houses would literally be, and we paid that as a credit. So you need to know perk tests or the sewer suitability. You need to have water access, whether it's well, municipal water, and electricity. Gas is a little less important, but obviously you could ask the seller for that as well. But usually what we do is we ask them on the sales call with the seller if they do know. If they don't know, we will call the county and figure out, hey, is there a sewer, water in that specific area? But we'll always perk a property. Whether we're funding, we fund dozens of deals every single quarter, or we're actually buying them ourselves. We're always getting a perk test, because if the property doesn't perk, you lose $60,000, like I just said. So utilities is deal killer number 3, and in my opinion, one of the most important things that you have to be aware of. Deal killer number 4 is wetland and environmental. So depending on the state that you're in, environmental looks really differently. If I'm sitting in Florida, right at the beachfront, I'm gonna be in a floodplain. All the other properties in that area are in floodplains. Doesn't matter nearly as much. If I'm in Pennsylvania or Virginia and I'm in a floodplain, it affects value very differently. Now look, this parcel, you see all these? These are called cattails. Now the question is, what does this mean? This means that we have a wetland right here. They're an indication that in a part of my property, it's an incredibly wet property. I can't build on this. Now, can I mitigate this? Sure. But depending on the quality and the price of the property, it's worth mitigating wetlands. Big property, development deal, whatever. But if you're just flipping a parcel of land, wetlands and FEMA floodplains, you gotta be really, really aware of that. We don't like to buy parcels with more than 50, 60% of wetlands, especially if you can see this is where the road frontage is, part of the road frontage. If it's coming right off a road like this, right? And it's right into this wetland, where do I build on the parcel? It's very difficult for me to build, right? So I'm always looking for wetlands and environmental wetlands and FEMA floodplains relative to the access of the parcel. For example, if these cattails were in the back of the parcel, I would think of the value very differently than if they were in the front of the parcel, because they prevent me from getting to the area that's buildable in the parcel. So when we're doing our due diligence on a map view above the parcel, or when we're physically having our broker walk the parcel, we're asking ourselves those questions. Because I would buy a parcel with 90% wetlands, FEMA floodplain. If the front of it was perfectly buildable, does that affect my comp value, the property of the parcel, or the value of the parcel? Yeah, I gotta have a conversation with the seller about that, right? I can't buy it for if it was this perfect pasture land. But what we're talking about today is not, this versus that. It's what are the things that I need to do and be aware of in terms of due diligence to ensure that I'm not buying a parcel that is going to cost me money and be a money pit. So wetland environmental, specifically wetlands and FEMA floodplains, are things that we really consider. So deal killer number 5 is zoning, buildability, and restrictions. The technical term is covenants, codes, and restrictions, which is what can I do with the land that I have, right? Can I put a mobile home on it? Can I put a house on it? Can I put an RV on it? What can I do with the property? The fewer restrictions, the more valuable the property. If you're buying an infill lot in a residential neighborhood, there's going to be a bunch of covenant codes and restrictions for what you can actually do with the parcel. If you are buying a parcel in the middle of nowhere, there are going to be fewer restrictions. Restrictions can make or break a deal. Why? The more restrictions that you have, the less your buyer pool is, right? So a lot of our buyers are people that are putting manufactured homes on these parcels of land. And so if you cannot put a manufactured home on the parcel of land, it severely restricts your buyer pool and will keep the property on the market longer. Instead of selling in 3 months, you might sell in 13 months. So we're always calling the county, checking the restrictions and the buildability of land. In addition, I just got this deal submitted to me. It's about 150 acres in Florida. Buy for 20,000 an acre, sell for 75 to 90,000 an acre. I'm going to Cabo if I do a deal like that. Amazing, amazing deal. Huge, $7 million of value right there. Problem is, the deal doesn't pencil because there are restrictions on what you can actually build on one of the lots. Why? Because in this specific county, they've cracked down on the zoning. And they don't want all these subdivisions because a lot of these parcels have been turning over and subdividing. They want to keep and preserve the rural nature of this county. And so we called the county. They sent us an email, said 20 of these acres are literally non-buildable. Like you cannot put a house on them, period. Which didn't make any sense to me because they're beautiful parcels of land. You should be able to build a house. Nope, can't do it. So calling the county, getting clear on the buildability, the restrictions on the land will make or break your land deal. In addition, buildability comes down to slope, right? We were talking about wetlands and FEMA floodplains, but slope is super, super important. You can use tools like Land Portal. There's a link down below if you want to get started with 1,000 free records. You can use tools like Land Portal to actually see the buildability, this really cool AI buildability feature. But if your parcel is too sloped, and I define too sloped in most cases as above 18% grade, in the majority of the parcel. It's really hard to build on above 18% grade unless you're building a $25 million home in Vail, Colorado, and then you don't even care about 18% grade. You'll freaking build a side of a mountain to put the house there. But for most people, 18% grade is a deal killer. Plus, it's really hard to put a septic tank on an 18% grade property because you got to like pump the septic up and it's very hard. So we look at buildability, and buildability also falls under the category of the slope of the property. And the last thing is the zoning. So if we are trying to change the characteristic of the parcel, which in land investing, I don't think in any real estate investing, there's as much opportunity to add value as literally changing the zoning. I'm going from this zoning to this zoning. I'm changing how many parcels I can put on this land. That's incredibly important too. For example, we bought a parcel in Indiana and we bought it and it was zoned commercial. Now it was in an area that was primarily residential, but if we sold it as a commercial lot, it would just take us way longer to actually sell the parcel. So we spoke with the county and we rezoned the parcel into a residential property. It's like 1 acre, 1.5 acres. wouldn't make any sense for commercial in this area. Rezoned it, no big deal, had a surveyor go out there, and we ended up making over $16,000 on the deal because we just changed the zoning classification, but that was a part of our due diligence. We knew that going into it. You can go and do a rezone, make 16, or you can make $1.6 million or more rezoning a parcel, changing the actual intended use under the code of the county. Deal killer number 6 is comps, comparables, right? So if you've been watching me for a while or know our APCP formula, which is acreage, proximity, characteristics, price, to figure out how to actually comp a parcel, that is how we internally and my underwriting team figures out the actual value of the parcel. Now that's pretty good, to be honest with you. It works 90% of the time, 95% of the time, but if we're gonna buy a parcel and have someone make money by listing it for us, we're gonna want that broker to go out to the parcel. So we use the CQT method, check, qualify, tour, to have a broker physically go out to the parcel and check it. Walk the land like we're walking my land right now and see how does it actually lay. And a lot of times, if it's a larger parcel, look, if it's a 1-2 acre parcel, depending, is it a lot of contours, a lot of slopes? Yeah, that affects value, kind of, but not as much if it's a larger parcel, right? So even if it's a smaller parcel, we're gonna have our broker go out to the property. They earn the right by doing that to list the property for us, okay? So we want a broker analysis on every parcel because we have what we believe the parcel is worth, and then we have the broker validated opinion of value. Sometimes, depending on how good the broker is, they'll show you that they're not the right one by giving you a value that's completely off. They're trying to earn your business by giving you a phony number. So that's why we want them to go out and tour the property, because if they mean business, they'll go and walk it. And we have them snap photos. So deal killer number 7 is getting that broker opinion of value to validate the market value of the property. And that's an integral part of our due diligence process that we have for literally every land deal that we do. So deal killer number 7 is survey and boundaries. Sometimes the title company will not even give you insurable title if you do not have a survey. Super important to get it. And if you're doing a subdivision, of course, you need a survey. But I just heard of a story of a guy that bought a parcel of land, didn't have an updated survey. Then when he went to survey it, he lost $100,000 in value because the survey was so old. Now, for me, the survey is not a prerequisite to buying a parcel, but if there is any sort of question of whether or not where the parcel boundary lines are or not, I'm gonna get a survey. For example, if you look at this here, you see, like I said earlier in the video, we see these boundary lines. So sometimes you'll have these when someone does a survey line, you'll have these pegs. You might have something a little bit more formal, like these boundary lines over here. Or sometimes there's just like little flags in the ground, like little kind of orange neon flags in the ground surrounding the parcel, just to show where the boundary lines of the parcel are. It's super helpful. So a couple places where I always get it. Number one, am I doing a subdivision? Of course I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna verify it before with the county, and then I'm gonna get a boundary line before I close, and then I'll subdivide it after I close in most cases. Number two, if there's any sort of contested access, for example, imagine there was a house that was like right here, right there, somewhere that was kind of on where our parcel is, which is I own this parcel right here, versus on the other side, right? If it was coming over and intruding on my boundaries, I would get a boundary survey for that, right? And the last thing is if the survey was so old that in order to ensure that I had the correct acreage range, specifically if it's big, like if it's a 2 acre, 3 acre, what's the difference? It's not going to be that large of a difference between a 2, a 2.5, or a 2 and a 1.8. So if you're short on cash, maybe you don't need to do it at that point. But if you have a larger parcel, 50, 60, 70 acres, it might be an 80 acre parcel that you find out is 64. And that significantly impacts your value and your back end sales rate. And so that's when I'll get a survey. Oh, is that guy coming over here? Whatever, it's my land. I'll let me do this and then I'll go and talk to this dude. So, guy's lived here for 40, 50 years, and he owns all this land here, and he actually mows it. Just asking, figure out what was happening, eyeing me up, figuring it out, you know. People are protective of their land, right? One of the reasons why, you know, we're so thoughtful about due diligence, right? And another thing is, when we check out these parcels, you want to make sure you know who your neighbors are. They say in real estate, location, location, location. that guy was a really nice guy, but what if he came out with a shotgun? In fact, a couple of years ago, first year in the land business, I remember we bought this parcel, was sitting back kind of off the street, off this dirt road. Had enough road frontage, we were able to do some flag lots. We bought might have been 20 acres. We cut it up into 3, 7, 6-ish acre parcels. We sold the first one, full price, made a ton of money on it. Second one, all of a sudden, we found out that the neighbors had an AK-47 range that was, they happened to shoot off every time we went over to the property. This is not the first time this has happened. It's hard to figure this out, but if you have a broker that walks around, asks a bunch of questions, which is what we ask our broker to do, to figure out how the land lays, who the neighbors are, you're gonna put yourself in a much better situation. So that was a crazy example of making sure that you know who your neighbors are. So the deal is, no matter what we talked about today, the 7 things, you're doing these 7 things, the key is making sure in your contracts that you have the right due diligence clause. We like to have at least 30 to 45 days. A little cheat code is 30 to 45 business days. That gives you ample time to call the county, perk the property, get the survey figured out, get the title insurance and legal restriction, get the access figured out, get wetlands and any other type of environmental issues, buildability and zoning all dialed in. So you make sure that you're not buying a parcel that is literally not buildable. This is all great, but the key thing here, most important, overarching, is do not fall in love with the property, fall in love with the process of doing the due diligence. One thing that I see, and I did as an early on land investor, is I would fall in love with the prospect of profit and the property, not that I'd rather not do a deal, right? And when you're early on, you might get a deal and it's like, dude, this is so close, I'm gonna stretch to make it happen. Very rarely, if ever, does stretching to make a deal happen end up working out. It just doesn't. And so do not fall in love with the property, fall in love with the process of conducting due diligence. So you make sure that whatever land deal you buy, you're not having to pay $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 in negative education because you bought the wrong property. So if you want to get our due diligence and underwriting checklist, there's a link in the description down below. You can get it completely free. And if you're interested in building or scaling your land business, you can click this video right here where I walk through a path to starting or scaling your land business and adding 6 figures to 7 figures to your business over the next 12 months.